We say it all the time. To friends, loved ones, don't get caught up, man. For real, I'm getting worried about you. We say it casually, unconsciously, never stopping to ask where that warning comes from. As if there's a voice that's always been with us, nudging us, reminding us. A whisper that doesn't belong to just one lifetime, but moves through many. Connected through something older, something woven. What some traditions called the net. Think about it. The most famous fisherman wasn't casting a line or a pole. He cast a net, went and got some bread, and pulled in 2 fish at once. Sounds symbolic, right? Like Pisces. Like Indra's net in Hindu thought, a web of jewels reflecting one another endlessly. Like a spider's web strong enough to hold an entire pattern of life moving through the same cloud of being. Some people say this is just metaphor. Then there were the initiates who were taught to move through the net without being trapped by it. Masters of the net. And then there's Moses. Raised in the royal Egyptian palace, surrounded by priests, symbols, and hidden knowledge. We all know the story of him leaving Egypt. But what if he didn't leave empty-handed? What if he left understanding how the net works, with God walking beside him through it? The book of Acts says it plainly. Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Today, a physicist might show you a picture. A stretched rubber sheet, gridded like graph paper, curving under the weight of a planet. Space-time, they call it. And we nod politely, as though this were a new idea. But 5,000 years ago, temple initiates spoke of precisely this. An energetic grid that sustains matter itself. Not things moving in space, but space itself as something alive, responsive, malleable. And those who learned to move with it were called, quite simply, masters of the net. Now here's where it gets interesting. On temple walls in Egypt, artists laid down geometric grids before painting them netru, humans or animals. Modern scholars say, oh, that was just for proportion. Which is rather like saying a violin is only wood and strings. The Egyptians wrote extensively about this grid. They named its layers. They mapped its currents. Ma'at, cosmic order, truth, balance. The same role symmetry and conservation laws play in modern physics. Heka, the activating force behind creation. Often translated as magic, but better understood as energy in action, directive power, what we now call fields and information flow. The Duat, the interpenetrating unseen world. Sekhem, the strength of that force, comparable to field intensity or electrical charge. The net is best understood as the patterned field through which these forces interact. To manipulate the net meant aligning these layers so intention could pass cleanly through them. A simple modern example of working with the net is something we've all seen. Fire. When we take dry bark or seed husks, materials structured to catch and hold energy, and introduce motion, friction, we're not inventing fire. We're aligning conditions within a larger energetic grid. Add air, the invisible carrier, and the system reorganizes itself. Heat accumulates. Thresholds are crossed. Flame appears. The Egyptians called this ma'at, correct alignment. Fire appears only when forces are balanced, not forced. The act itself is Heka, not magic, but applied knowledge of how forces interact. Knowing where to press, how fast to move, when to stop. The unseen buildup, the heat before flame, is Sekhem, stored power gathering quietly. Potential becoming presence. The breath that feeds the spark is Ka, the animating life force. Without breath, the flame dies. The dry wood is Kat, the physical body. Matter prepared for transformation. And the moment flame appears, crossing from unseen heat into visible light, that threshold is the Duat, the in-between state where change occurs. Fire is not magic. It is the net obeyed. Voila. Ancient initiates would say the same thing about every so-called miracle. The net is always present. Energy is always moving. Creation happens when elements are placed in the right relationship. Fire is not summoned. It is released. This is why the masters of the net were not sorcerers. They were technicians of alignment. They studied how forces interlock. Wind with fiber, pressure with crystal, geometry with consciousness, until transformation occurred naturally. The lesson is subtle, but critical. Power does not come from force. It comes from understanding how the web already wants to move. That which is below corresponds to that which is above. Take Jehuti, later mispronounced as Thoth, not a bird-headed deity to be worshipped, but the intelligence of measure, number, and articulation, the one who teaches how patterns speak. And in a remarkable text, what we now call the Book of the Dead, but which is more accurately the Book of Coming Forth into the Light, the initiate declares, "O fisherman, you shall not catch me in your net, for I know the net from its heights to its depths." The same idea appears again in the Westcar Papyrus, which describes elite practitioners known as masters of the net. One figure, associated with the Jed pillar, the spinal axis connecting heaven and earth, demonstrates control over natural forces by parting the waters of a lake to retrieve an object. This act is not framed as divine intervention, but as applied knowledge. Later traditions would describe similar acts, such as the parting of the Red Sea, as miracles. But Moses was trained in Egyptian temples. His staff mirrors Egyptian ritual tools designed to interact with energetic fields. The staff functions as an antenna, detecting, focusing, and projecting forces through specific geometries. The Westcar Papyrus goes further, attributing to one master the ability to restore life and to know hidden things. These abilities are not portrayed as violations of nature, but as outcomes of alignment with it. This is where misunderstanding often arises. The Egyptian net was never meant to be escaped, nor was it a system for magical domination. The texts repeatedly warn against using the net for egoic control. True mastery was not power over the grid, but coherence within it. The initiate did not bend the net to personal will. The initiate learned how will itself arises from the net. This distinction matters. Modern science increasingly suggests that consciousness and matter are not separate phenomena, but expressions of the same underlying field. As physicist David Bohm proposed, reality unfolds from an implicate order, a hidden structure giving rise to visible form. The Egyptians would not have argued with that. They would simply say, "You are late to the conversation. The net was never secret. It was only inaccessible to those who refused discipline." Knowledge has always been offered in layers, not to exclude, but to protect. Milk for those learning to orient. Meat for those prepared to act responsibly within structure. The net does not reward belief. It responds to understanding.